Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Simulating Civilization in Yeeps. Now, if you haven't watched episode 0, you don't need to watch it. It was me just making this map down here. And right now, this is going to be quick. It's going to be a quick little segment here before we start. And honestly, episode 0 was just going through the map and then going over the rules and how things are going to work. But even then, just watching this, you could find them out pretty easy. So now, looking at here, this is all the colors in Yeeps. Right, so, for example, if a color's not currently being used, it's going to be red. Alright, but if I'm using a color, I'd paint it green. To know that it's being used to not repeat colors. And then colors that I'm not going to use at all are going to be black. So, for example, blue right here, it's the color of the water, so I can't use it. White, it's not going to be an actual color. It's going to be explored land. Black, because, yeah, and then all the neons. So all these colors of the red are the colors I am going to be using. So now I can officially begin. I'm going to pull out a couple things I'm going to need. For example, we're looking at stars right here, starfish. Those are going to act as the capitals. Right, then we're going to have white for explored land, and then the other two are just going to be like random paints. Right, so let's go. Alright, looking at this huge map, we could really start anywhere. You know, none of this land is explored yet. But, where we are gonna go, where we're gonna begin, is right here. Right, so, I'm gonna get red. This is gonna be the first land ever discovered, and it's a new country made. And since this is a starting area, we're gonna put a country capital here. And country capitals are always glowing yellow. Alright, so we've got this new land here, right? This new country. And to begin, they're going to start exploring out, right? They're going to explore here. They're going to discover the mountains here. Are they going to explore down the coast? Right, then they're actually going to sail out and get these islands. So they made some pretty significant explorations. And then now they're going to actually take over this territory and make it a part of them. Alright, so this red nation is going to keep expanding and eventually discover the river and then go all the way through these mountains. They're going to keep going, they cross over the river, and they make many, many expeditions. Right, and they expand significantly. But then, after a little bit more exploration, they find a civilization down here. And after telling them about what they have, how they're a country, how they're discovering land, this civilization decides to be like them. So we get the Midnight, I think that's what it's called. The Midnight country here. Alright, so they're gonna start doing a bit more expanding. Right, they're also gonna get a capital along the river right here. And red is gonna keep expanding, and then this Midnight country is not gonna like that. This Midnight country wants a buffer between them, because, right, they just found these people, don't even know anything about them. They could be hostile for all they know. Right, yeah, Midnight is going to explore around here, but these guys, they just want to keep exploring and finding new land. But eventually, Red gets too close, and now they share a border. Alright, we got this Midnight, which is also expanded further. Alright, Midnight, they kind of just gotta suck it up. So both countries start expanding more and more. All right, Midnight comes up in here and expands along the river and goes through the mountains. All right, Red also expands along, growing massively. Now, honestly, Red hasn't really explored much, but just over the horizon, they see a massive mountain peak. They want to go check that out. So they set up an expedition, and it sends them all the way up the mountain, and they discover the mountain peak. I gotta, like really dig in. Alright, so they just discovered this. They're super excited. You know, there's more land. They just keep expanding, and they keep growing. Alright, Red gets pretty sizable. Red gets pretty big. Alright, they're just focusing on really growing and expanding. But this Midnight right here, they aren't really doing that, you know? They're just kind of staying where they are and exploring some of this new world. Right, but as Red sends out more and more expeditions, you know, they wanna see, is there any more land out here I can cross the ocean? So they send up a little expedition crew, and they land on the shores here. They don't know if this is an island. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But they're just gonna have to wonder, right? Red just keeps expanding, right? All Red wants to do is expand. Right, but Red is really greedy. Alright, Red is just looking to expand, and do more expanding. Right, they're not trying to take care of the people they expand to. So, we see a lot of revolutions come up in. We have the olive peoples revolt here. And then, right, we get these steel people revolt, and then they're just losing a lot of land. But they want to hold on to their land, right? So they begin invasions of these to try and hold on. Olive almost gets it done, but Steel's lost. We ain't seen Steel. But then Olive makes a miraculous comeback and invades severely, forcing Red to surrender. So we've got this new olive country in here. And Red does not take this as a sign to slow down. Red keeps expanding. And right, eventually, they get to this river over here. And they're going. They're expanding along the river. Right? Setting up outposts. And they cross the river. It is good. They discover a lot of resources, which helps them boost their economy. We're gonna have the green capital. All green capital will be like right here. Yeah, they discover a lot of resources, which boosts their economy. Right, they start setting up forts to get control over these areas that they're all finding. But when you hold too vast of an empire, right, it's hard to keep control of it all. So Midnight also is sending out exploration teams. Right, they're going down south, and eventually, right, just across the river here, they discover the brown people. Alright, that sounds kind of wrong to say. They discover the brown country. Alright, and instead of doing something like Red, where they just, like, don't care, Midnight finds this as a huge discovery, and they start quickly setting up trade between them. Alright, and then Red is still expanding. Alright, Midnight, although, just keeps expanding into the mountains. They just keep exploring, and eventually Midnight and Red's teams meet up. And honestly, I'm not too sure. I don't think the teams really care. But Red keeps expanding. Right, they expand a little bit into the mountains, get around. It is good. Red is really just trying to get the most land that they can. Right, Olive doesn't really care for that. Olive is just here along. All right, then we got Grand Civilization. They've explored. All right, Red just keeps on expanding. They just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. Right, they even get some expansion up in the mountains here. Yes, but yeah, Red hasn't learned from Olive or Steel, so they keep just mistreating their people, don't care about them, they just care about expanding. So we have another revolt over here. You have the Lavender area, and since it's kind of far away from the Red mainland, they end up losing this area. Now we have the new Lavender country, which is going to have a capital right here, down in the first settlement. Alright, but Red's territory is getting harder and harder to control as it gets farther and farther away from the center. So it decides to go to some of its closer neighbors. And seeing as they think... Oh, dude, I didn't even get a capital here. Capital is going to be like right here. Seeing as they think that Midnight is weaker than them, they go in for a surprise invasion. Alright, this takes Midnight by storm. They didn't know this was going to happen, and Midnight's capital is taken. So Olive here... Alright, dude. Olive here is not going to let that stand by. So Olive comes in and invades this Red territory, setting up a new war between them. And Brown down here sends aid to Midnight, allowing them to push back against Red. Alright, and reclaim much of their lands. Alright, and Olive... Red is too preoccupied on trying to stop Midnight. So Olive ends up taking this whole area for themselves. Right, in here, they're gonna bring back the Steel people. Right, the Steel people, they're gonna get some land. Yep. And then we're gonna have a new type of people we set up, the Light Yellows. Boom, just like that. But yeah, Red still holds on to some stuff out here in the west and this little bank of the river. And significant territories are lost. So yeah, this is really the map of Red right now. But continued expansion is brought up by Red. Alright, they're keeping their colony up here. Right, they expand down along the coast. Alright, go through here, but they eventually sort of hit a wall, right? These mountains just seem to go on forever over here. Alright, so Red still hasn't learned a lesson yet and decides to go on down and try to go in the mountains. Right, but there are some hidden tribes here who didn't really have a lot of contact with the outside world. Yeah, what color do I make them? There are some hidden tribes, right? The grass green people who are living up in the mountains, right? And they didn't want no one really encroaching on their mountain land. So they went to war with Red. And honestly, Red was pretty weak now. Red had just lost a bunch of land. Red didn't have good relations with anyone. So they didn't really want to fight a war. They honestly just came in and they just gave it up. They just gave it up. So now we have the new Turquoise Kingdom. The Turquoise Mountainous Kingdom. whose capital is going to be right here along the coast. Not along the coast, along the river. Oh, right, yeah. You'll need a capital for these two. This one, they'll have a capital at least surrounded by mountains. And this one's capital is going to be right along the river. So, yeah, this is how the map is looking right now. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of expansion from red, but they've lost a significant amount of land. We still have this lavender country, which isn't really doing much. We have this brown country down here, and the midnight country. All just went to war against red. They've lost a bunch of land. Red has really just hit a roadblock with these mountains. The expedition up in the mountains here to get to the mountaintop really just was not a good expedition. They made it to the top, but they really lost a lot. So yeah, now we're gonna continue on with this lavender country here. They're gonna go in and connect up to some expeditions from Olive. Alright, and lavender is going to eventually explore this whole peninsular area, doing this island right here, and they're gonna do some pretty major expanding, right, on this side of the river and this side of the river, where they're gonna sail a little bit through this lake, you know, discovering some more areas and really seeing where everything leads. But lavender is like red, right? They get a bit greedy, right? They take more land than they probably should, and they begin to upset some people over in this northeastern area. Alright, so we are seeing the arrival of... We're gonna see the arrival of the light... Not light blue. Of the just regular blue people who are like... Alright, you need to give up some of this land. You know, you can't just have it all. Right, and Lavender's like, no. But eventually, after some discussions, right, Lavender gives up some land, as they do not want to have an all-out war. Right, so down here in the south with this brown area, they're going to build off of some of Midnight's expeditions and go over here. They're gonna find some things. They're gonna come up to these mountains over here. Send a couple of expeditions into those. So yeah, so far the world, there isn't really much here. There is not really much in the world so far. All right. Yep. Just gotta make a capital. Alright, now we're going to go in with, we're going to come in with some more mountain exploration from both red and steel here. They're going to really get up in that mountain. They're going to discover a lot. But it's not too crazy so far. Alright, now, down in the south here, we're going to get a new country, the Mocha country. Alright, I feel like Mocha is too close to brown. Man, there's so many colors with so little colors. We're going to get the cyan, teal, whatever color it is, the Teal Nation coming up in here, where they're gonna go along the coast, and they're going to sort of expand into a lot of this unexplored territory. We're going to set up a capital right here. Right now, Teal is pretty hostile, right? Teal really doesn't want to have any neighbors. You know, Teal wants to stay isolated. What? Oh, okay. I'm not too sure what just happened right there. Yeah, okay, alright. I guess as I was saying, the Teal Nation is pretty hostile, right? It wants to stay away from neighbors. But as more countries are expanding, right, it's getting a bit harder to do that. Oh yeah, we still got the Turquoise Kingdom, who sends some expansion down the mountain, right, and eventually meets up with Teal, to where Turquoise is attacked by some Teal, soldiers or expeditioners, whatever, as they perceive Teal as a threat. Dude, what? As they perceive Turquoise as a threat. So we have Turquoise and Teal go to war, right? Because Turquoise, they're like, yeah, why'd you attack my people? And Teal was like, I don't care, bro. I do not care. Right, so Teal is going to... Not Teal, sorry. Turquoise is going to march down the mountains and begin to invade, right? And they're doing some guerrilla warfare here, right? They're really taking out Teal. All right, but Brown sees this, even though Teal, right, has been pretty hostile to Brown's attempts of connecting. Brown sees what's happening down there and says, no, we're not gonna let that happen. So Brown comes in and begins attacking much of Turquoise. Right, so then we have Teal come in and regain their land and manage to push Turquoise back up into the mountains. Now, honestly, neither one really gained any land at all from this. Neither country. But Teal did expand up into the north a little bit. And their border with Brown, they actually moved. So yeah, we've had a war. We've had a couple wars. We've had a lot of expanding happening. A lot of expansion. And yeah, that's going to be about it for this episode. Alright, so we're going to come in. Their green paint. We're going to get all the countries. Of course, there's red. Boom. Boom. There's that one. There's steel. There's... I think it's this one. It's this one. It's this one. So, yeah. I think this is going to be all the... Whoa, almost forgot midnight. So, yeah, this is going to be all the countries that we have so far. Alright, I will see you. It's like so dark in here because of void. Okay, it's not much brighter now. That's... Alright, well, I will see you all in episode 2 of Simulating Civilization in Yeeps. This has been Vig0609. Bye-bye!